Hello and welcome to In the Making, a series of conversations from North Bennett Street School where we connect with a range of new voices, fields, and perspectives. Before we get into our conversation, we want to thank the many supporters that make our programs possible, including the Massachusetts Cultural Council, the Holt and Bugby Company, and all of our corporate partners in craft. My name is Kristen Odell. I'm an NBSS staff member and host of In the Making. We're live streaming from Wingate Gallery here at North Bennett Street School in the North End today. And as I mentioned, on the other side of this camera is a handful of students, staff, and faculty. And thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here with us. Within the scope of our upcoming 2024 exhibition, Then and Now, we are cycling through the ecosystem of student to instructor in this program, specifically with the crew that we have today, who at some point have all intersected as students or instructors and continue to intersect as community ed and career training program instructors. With us today is Matt Wajda, Ellen Kaspern, and Rachel Prentki, and I'm going to leave. And there they are. Thank you all for being with us. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for being willing to share your story and how you all fibrously connect with one another. It's just such a great story. So let's just start off with the easy first question. Tell us when and how each of you met, and at what point was that in your North Bennett Street School experience? Whoever wants to go can go.
I was taking my second CE class here when I met Matt. I was in Jamie's 3-month class and I was trying to screw something together without drilling pilot holes. So it was kind of going and not going together very well. And Matt was teaching something else, but saw me and came over and explained why I needed to do that. And that was the first time I met him. And Ellen taught me machine maintenance when I was in the full-time program a couple years later.
I first met Matt. I was taking a continuing ed class. I was taking, I think, fundamentals of machine woodworking, and he was assisting Brian Kelly at the time. I think it was in 1997, maybe 98, 99. And then I met Rachel, as she said. I was subbing upstairs and teaching, I think, machines.
Yeah,
All the machines.
Yeah.
all the machines.
And my answer is the reverse of their answers. I think I met Ellen in that class, in that fundamentals of machine woodworking class. I was a student at the time, halfway through my process. It was right around 1999, I think. And Rachel, I barely remember the pilot hole story, but I remember meeting and working with you in the full-time program when I came on in your second year.
Yeah.
And we were doing stuff together then.
Yeah, thank you. Have any of you, I kind of know that you have, but if you want to share with us, have any of you collaborated outside of NBSS?
I think, yeah, we have definitely. I mean, Rachel and I were in a shop space together for a little bit, and we just did a chair class together this fall in the community ed at North Bennett Street. So we were kind of working on that chair, thinking of ways to, construct it and
Make it easier to construct in a class format. And then also I've been taking over a lot of your smaller project classes now that you're a full-time instructor here, which is kind of awesome that you've been pushing me to do that. But
so working together. And then with Matt, I mean, always learning from Matt. I assisted him many times in classes and then started teaching on my own. But then outside, I had to do an install of a built-in and he helped me. I never did an install at that time. And so
I think for me, the most of the collaborating has been via the educational stuff. A little bit of shop work, Ellen and I, or a little bit of what do you think of this?
Yeah.
And then we can make some decisions or solve some problems or something. But I feel like for a long time, 8 years, 10 years, a long time we worked together. We taught that one fundamentals of machine woodworking class together. And as Brian Kelly left to go on to teach middle school, a middle school shop class in Wellesley, Mass, I believe. I remember that awkward weekend where I don't want to do it by myself. And then I think another teacher in the full-time program, the cabinet program, assisted me. And then I did it the next time. And then you just stayed. You came on and we did it together for a long go, definitely more than 5 years. And that was awesome. We had
Yeah.
it was a science.
Really fun.
Yeah, changed the class,
Yeah.
changed how it ended.
Mhm.
I think I felt like we had the most runs of full and
Yeah.
waitlisted students. It was awesome.
And I learned so much doing that, just learning how, I learned how to be a teacher from that. So, and just making my work better. So that was just,
And now Alan's passing that actually down to me. So I've
Yeah.
co-taught a couple classes with you and it's really interesting to see how you do stuff. And teach people. So
I'm
it's
just
been very
channeling that,
valuable.
really. That's all I'm doing. So,
You said just stayed. That's kind of a common sentiment around.
North Bennett,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just stayed.
Just stayed.
Yeah.
Try and pry us out of here.
yeah.
Right. So Rachel, you just had a natural guide into this next question. In your careers, you've passed along your education to one another. In what sort of ways have you found yourselves supporting and pushing one another along in your careers outside of here, or even as a teacher?
I mean, Ellen's helped me get a lot of more teaching experience. Like when you came here full time, you hooked me up with going to go teach at Mass Art, which
Mhm.
was a huge step, but it was really, really cool. And I've very much appreciated you pushing me towards that because it's accelerated my teaching career faster than it would have otherwise.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just sharing, same thing with Matt, with me, and I started teaching the class when Brian Weldy went to Williamsburg, and he was doing it Tuesday, Thursday nights, and I'd been assisting Matt so much with fundamentals of machine woodworking. He was like, "Hey, do you want to take this class over for me?" And I was like, "Okay." So, and as I was assisting Matt with fundamentals of machine woodworking, each time he would let me teach a little bit more and more. So like I was able to ease my way into it, like, "Hey, you do this part of the class." And so that was just really helpful.
I kind of even remember there was that
Yeah.
one or two
Yeah.
classes where I
Mhm.
assisted and you taught.
Yeah,
And we
or
just went through the
one day you
process.
couldn't make it and then I would just do it. So that was really, yeah. So I think it's just, I know that my instructors helped me so much that I wanted to, pass it on to Rachel because I just know how important that was. And yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we talked about that, we talked about being competitive and how this is not really a place for that kind of, no one needs to be competitive with one another. There's space for everyone in the woodworking community. And so I love the idea of you all sort of just supportively pushing each other to the next level, whether it be in teaching, teaching methods, and then your own craft outside of here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love, Alan, we spoke earlier today also about the things, how teaching itself, the act of teaching, how that enhances your practice.
Oh, I learn every time I teach, I learn, like every time, and it just makes me a better woodworker, furniture maker, and because you have to think of different ways to do things or yeah.
Articulate it so they can
Yeah.
figure out like, it's not just I'm doing this, it's why I'm
Yeah, why I'm
doing that.
it.
So it makes sense.
So another sort of baseline thing that I'm factoring into this upcoming exhibition is this beautiful idea that this is sort of the only place that I know of where you have folks coming in to the same program, starting at the same starting line, but from all different points in their life. You have post-career, you have post-high school, and what they're bringing with them is, whatever point in their life that they are, but they all have that same sort of nervous energy or whatever that is going to be on day one. And so I want to ask you all, even from your first CE class, what was your feeling? That, nervous, excited, what was your first feeling? And then how do you tie that into the way you engage with your students?
I was really nervous. I was taking the fundamentals of fine woodworking, which is half sharpening stuff. And so my first reaction was, oh, there's a lot more sharpening in woodworking than I expected. But also my first set of dovetails I did in that class looks like I did it with my teeth. And just because you start and are not great doesn't mean stuff isn't going to get a lot better a lot quicker. So I tell people that like, it looks like I did it with my teeth. This is all better than that. You guys are going to be fine. And you don't have to learn everything while you're here. There's not time for that. But if you kind of watch what everybody else is doing while you're a student, even in like the other programs, you're going to learn a lot more than if you just try and do everything because there's not time.
And then for me, I took shaker boxes with Judith Hansen. That was my first class. And I was just so excited because I knew about the school and I always wanted to take a class here. And so it was just really, really exciting. So it was really fun that was a really neat project class that I took. And she's an awesome teacher. So
And that was your first step into North Bennett.
yes.
Do
Yeah.
you have your box still?
I don't think I do.
My dovetails are in the basement.
Okay.
Well, I want to jump back to you, Rachel. Your timeline is so impressive because it's very compact
Yeah.
and recent. And you went from your first CE class to the full-time program in under a year.
It escalates quickly is what I tell people in my introduction CE classes now, so they have to watch out. Yeah, I was in the 2-week class and then I saw Jamie's class down the hall. And I was like watching what they were all doing down there. I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. And so immediately signed up for that and applied to the full-time while I was in that class.
Does that mean that you were already, you knew this was gonna be your direction?
I needed to kind of test drive it first because I don't use my undergrad degree and I wanted to check it out with the 3-month, but I'd also had a wrist injury before that and I needed to see whether I could physically do the stuff in the class. But again, I wasn't using my undergrad degree and I wanted to do something different and this worked out really
Yeah.
well.
And now can you see any other path forward?
Not really, no.
Had you ever seen yourself becoming a teacher of any kind?
So I taught summer camp arts and crafts when I was a teenager and I really enjoyed doing that. I hadn't really thought about teaching, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah. What's the thing that you take most that fulfills you most from teaching?
As I said, I teach a lot of the woodworking 101s, which are a lot of people who have never touched a piece of wood before, basically. And a lot of them, like they've got something that's in their head that they want to work towards building and just kind of helping them set baby steps towards that is really fun. And just seeing them like start to figure out, oh, this is how this works is really, really rewarding.
I'm gonna go even deeper into that. What is something that a first-time 101 student has like a eureka moment over that never gets old?
When they figure out how to cut a straight like line with the chisel, and then they're like, when they figure out what true flatness is off the chisel, it's fun to watch.
And would you compare that? Does that have as much importance as something that you all know with your years of collective experience? Is there something else that's even more important than, just fundamental to making an object?
I mean, definitely working with the students and getting to know them and sharing. I love to share. I mean, my instructors shared all of their knowledge and they were always giving. And so when I teach, that's what I try to do. I just want to give everything that what I was taught. I want to give back to the community. No, I want you to know everything and there's not enough time and I can talk a lot. So, just seeing that and then just the community of North Bennett Street, like working with Lance, working with Matt, working with Jamie, working with Nick. It's just, and, working with Rachel, working with, people that have gone through the program at different times, but we had that connection and I love that. And so it's just the people here, the community and the students. So.
And Matt, I'll quote you from earlier. You have the same, you said that a weakness in your teaching is that you don't know how to scale down the fire hose of information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sometimes. I've been critiqued that in the past. Like, whoa. I don't know what you're talking about anymore. And on one hand, that's bad for me as I'm off track or I'm not focusing on what I need to get them to understand. But at the same time, I think about like, okay, well, there's a lot of stuff to talk about and there's a lot of stuff to do. And some of that isn't necessarily like the actual woodworking parts or or like we're actually going to stand in a certain way or be a certain way before we do it. But I try to kind of gauge the size of the fire hose by where I am on the horseshoe. That's what we call upstairs. When I'm with Ellen's group, the hose is a little smaller.
The first semesters.
Yeah, we get around the corner to Lance and Jamie's group and we can get the hose to be a little bit bigger. And they're gaining skills as that happens. And I'm gaining skills as they're gaining skills. You can kind of gauge that as they need. But I still, after all the time, I still like the aha moments where I go by and it's just not happening, and I go by again, and it's totally happening. Or it's not happening and we're gonna do it a different way and it's
Mhm.
happening even better. Or with the CE work, it was, if I had a nickel for as many times, like it's at right before lunch or something, and we're gonna do the table saw after lunch. It's Wednesday ripping day or Thursday ripping day, whatever day that was. And like, I've never done it ever. Never. Good.
Yeah.
There's no problem then. There's no
Right.
issue. There's no question.
No bad habits. to
There's no
break.
bad habit. Everything will be fine.
No bad habits, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
really. And we're almost always right. And the same thing in the full-time programs, I think too. Like, I just not sure what to do. And the process, I think, is the thing maybe that I've learned the most of from a student to now, is not so much, not only can you not learn how to build everything while you're here, but you can't learn how to teach everything while you're here either.
No.
But there are only 5 things. And once you figure out that they all kind of nestle together,
Yeah.
one thing relates to another. And gosh, there's so many things in that chisel block and that oilstone box.
Right,
You
yeah.
just don't know for 5 years after we give you the lesson.
And it might feel like hazing when we have you do it, but there is a reason why.
There's always a reason why.
To
And
be
it's,
clear, for our audience, we're talking about the very first object that you all make in fine woodworking and
and
in
it-
full-time.
And the 3-month, I think,
class,
too.
yes, 3-month does it as well. Yeah.
Little chisel block where you learn how to do like angles on it, learn how to round stuff over with the chisel,
Mhm.
figure out if you actually sharpened it for real.
You recall, and this might be tough to answer because you're so far removed now from when you were a CE student and took your first workshop. But do you remember learning in that mode something that where the fire hose was too wide open and you just, and that has affected the way that you're teaching the students now? Was there something like that you were in that moment, you're like, I'm gonna change this when I become a teacher?
I wanted to emulate exactly what
Mhm.
happened. At least that's what I had never seen any place like this before or been taught any of that information before. I should mention my first workshop that I took here was in 1997 with my first teacher was Steve Brown. He just filled in for the first day. He was just substitute teaching. So and then Dan Faya took over on the second day, and I took the class with my dad. And he had always told me like, oh, there's this place in Boston. But then we had you guys, and then I didn't go. And for a long time, I didn't really know what he was talking about. But he had always, there was always Fine Woodworking magazine all over, and I should say there still is Fine Woodworking magazines everywhere, and a wood shop full of stuff. And I always thought that was kind of his thing. I was in the trades. I was a carpenter. I still am a carpenter in some format. And I thought, well, that could be my dad's thing, and he can carve feet and do fancy things, and I can build buildings and do that stuff. And then my mom said something like, well, you should go together to this place in Boston, and it can be a Father's Day thing for him. And it'll be a surprise. You'll be the surprise because you don't live here anymore. So when I came back, and then we went to Boston together from Baltimore, and again, like halfway through the 2-week thing, I remember Dan Faya saying something like, have you thought about doing this more? Because I'm running out of stuff for you to try.
So was your dad jealous when you came to the full time?
I think a little, but there was that moment where he said to me later, you know more than me now. And that still doesn't really that still feels weird to say out loud. He's still the one. But yeah, Dan said he's like, I'll go get you an application. And I came back from
That's
lunch
great.
and there it was on my bench.
He's just like, you will be here.
And I took it back to Colorado and told all my friends that I was going to go to this awesome trade school in Boston. And then like 3 months before the application was due, someone's like, you should probably do that if you're actually going to do that. And when the letter came, it's very small. The letter's very small. Should make the letter much bigger. Because you don't need that much space to say no. But it was yes. And then, yeah, the rest of it is just the rest of it. And I truly never left, really.
Yeah.
I never left.
Starting point that it just started with I'm gonna go do this thing with my father for Father's Day.
That's how it
And
started.
now here you are.
Yep.
And you have had your hands in every place in this building. You have subbed in 3 different programs. You've been full-time instructor, CE instructor, working on all of the machines all over the building. And that all started with a Father's Day
Gift to my dad.
gift.
Yeah.
That's wild. That is very.
Thank you
moving.
all.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Go
Thank
Matt's
you
dad,
both.
yeah.
What's your first, well, you said your first class with Judith. Hanson.
Mhm,
What
mhm.
what was your, snap into the, oh, I found this class I want to take, what was the first?
I always did, like, I was always around woodworking, so I was always doing things. And then after that, I took the class with Brian Kelly, which Matt assisted. And I mean, Brian's just amazing. And I was just like, and when I too just want to emulate the people that taught me, that's what I want to do. Because it was just my education through CE in the full-time program. And then as teaching is just, yeah, just has been awesome. But he did a slideshow at the end of all of his classes of his work. And I was like, when I teach, that's what I'm going to do. And so I do that now. And
Do you?
I show my work and I have a slideshow, and I think people really like it and they can get inspired and then they want to take more classes.
I
And
think it
I
makes you
just,
feel like a rock star too, because
Oh.
on Sunday they're all going,
but it was just, I just remember I just loved that he did that. And I was like, that's what I want to do I think years later, I mean, not right then, I did not know I was going to be teaching. I had no idea I was going to do that, but I always think of that. I always think of Brian, so.
I could see that as a CE student, how impactful that would be. Your day one, you're learning the first thing that you're teaching. And then you see the work of your instructor. I mean, those are goals.
And then just saying like, hey, this in this picture, I did this and we did that in class. Like, so to kind of relate it back to them, like you can do this. Yeah.
that's why I really like giving a tour if we have
Mhm.
time in the CE classes coming up through the full-time program, so they can see like what this could turn into if they want to keep going.
Yes.
Mhm.
That was a favorite for me too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that was what
Yeah.
suckered me in.
Mhm.
Yep.
But
So you, the three of you have said that you have wanted to emulate your instructors. That's kind of what's carrying down through the generations. Do you know what their experience was in your shoes? Did they go through the same? Do we know any of that?
I don't think that they were doing continuing ed or community ed classes then. So they
That
would
just
have
be so
to,
fascinating to have their brand down of what.
Yeah.
I should mention for me too, I was sculpted by Brian Kelly. He's the one who
Mhm.
taught me how to teach other people, how to teach other people.
Mhm.
But I think about like with Mike's time with Dan Faya in community education, then I was just blown away by like how talented he is and how young he is and how it went from like when he was giving us his story, like, so wait a minute, you came here when you were 17 years old and you left when you were 19
when I
years
found out
old?
he was the head of the program, I was gobsmacked
Yeah.
because he barely looked older than I was.
And
What age was he?
well, he finished when he was 19. He's still the youngest we've ever graduated from the program.
Wow.
There was another one, he missed it by like 2 months, but he's still the youngest. And then the next semester he's teaching in CE. And then he said, I don't even know how it happened. We just started doing it. Another instructor asked if he could help. And that's kind of how it started for me too. It's like, I need someone to help me. And then when I met Brian, it was like, I want to be like that person. I want to do it like he can do it and be in that seeming chaos place, loud and dust collectors and saws running and stuff. And he's just cool as a cucumber and unbothered by anything and just focusing on the students and having them all come out.
And I've said this before, I always say this, like, Matt, you're a teacher's teacher. Like, you really taught me how to teach. So yeah, I mean, that experience, like everyone should get that. So
That's such an interesting byproduct that I, in my position, don't think about. I'm sure that other people are thinking about that, but externally, you're coming here to learn how to become a craftsperson and build a piece of furniture, but to also have the byproduct of learning how to teach,
Yeah.
that's just really interesting.
And that's also really great at like, you can figure anything out, even if it's like really weird, like, and if it doesn't work one way, you'll figure out like another way.
that's you too, Rachel. You're so smart. Like we were talking about it this morning. I'm like, Rachel's just,
Brilliant.
I'm like, yeah,
Thank
We'll go
you.
with that.
yeah.
But
So-
also just like, Matt's also great about like at North Bennett, we get very like, it has to be perfect, but sometimes out in the real world, it just has to be good enough. And remember once, like first semester, I was like, I could not get a chisel sharpened, like the little burr wouldn't go away. And you're like, you showed me the little secret trick of just, let's run it along the edge of the bench and it's going to be sharp enough for today. Like sometimes you just need a small little win. But like, again, I use that in the 101s too. I'm like, sometimes like, okay, this will get us past it.
And then you'll be ready for the next, take it to the next.
Yeah,
person.
exactly.
Yep.
Can I just pause on, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Tell me Rachel's brilliance.
She's just so
Let's talk
smart.
about it.
I mean, like, she just is always thinking about different ways to do things, or like, hey, let's try. You're just.
Well, like the
We were
rotate.
talking about the fixtures the other
Yeah.
day, last
Oh.
week, you're like, oh, that, oh, do you do this? How about that? And
Yeah.
always adding on or making it better.
And some of it's like I mentioned I had a pretty bad wrist injury. So some of it is I have to be able to do stuff different ways. And so I'm figuring out different ways that'll work for me to physically do stuff. And sometimes that helps me figure out other people, like they can't hold a tool a certain way. Like, how can we do this safely and still get you the results you need?
Yeah.
So I think actually the wrist injury sort of helped a little bit sometimes.
Creative problem solving.
Yeah.
Ellen, you were doing software at a certain point, right?
Yeah,
For a very
I
long
was
time.
long time. Yeah.
Did the two of you and Rachel, you said you didn't really use step into your undergrad degree. I don't know what that was.
It was film. I don't use it. I had one internship ever.
But creative.
Yeah.
Did either of you in those other careers or educational paths, were you able to use the creativity that you use today in this work?
For me, they're both problem solving, and that's what I like to do. And I like to make things. So I was making problem solving. So it's just logic. That's really what it comes down to. And I've always loved that since I was young. So
I've always been very, very crafty. Like even when I was little, like, my parents like block piles of wood and I would just nail stuff together, or like always building really elaborate stuff for Halloween. But my job before I came here was building 3D models of neurons in an online game thing that I helped run. So building a map of the brain basically. So it was very 3D spatial, which is something I'm really good with. But you asked me if I ever thought about teaching. I forgot. Half of that job was basically teaching other people how to do it, which I actually really enjoyed getting to do.
I can see you as being a really wonderful teacher. I've never had a lesson with you.
Come take one of my classes. It'll be great.
There we go.
yeah.
But yeah.
How do you transition, or do the two complement each other? That 3D modeling, which you did, which you just mentioned, and the physical building, are they pretty much the same thing in your mind?
Just I'm able to see stuff 3D, like put how stuff will go together pretty well, and how things will fit together. But I don't know exactly. Just I've always been very good spatial awareness with stuff.
Can you see this for the two of you? Can you see any other career path that your love of logic and your spatial awareness skill set, like, can you see that applying to any other career path? You're already shaking your head, Ellen.
I mean, no, this is it.
And I stayed.
I stayed exactly.
I'm sure there's other stuff I could.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's
yeah.
other things that you can apply that to,
I mean, my old job still exists, but I like this better.
Right, that
Yeah.
you would enjoy doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely other things you enjoy doing, but no.
I'm pretty happy with this, so.
Can you all tell us something that and you may have already answered this in a few different ways, but I'm going to ask it more pointedly, sort of to the students that are here and virtually. What is something that you have brought from your own student experience into your teaching experience? And you can be specific to a technique even that.
Anything I learned the hard way, I'll be like, okay, I used to do this and this is why we do this way. Like if you don't hold your knuckles against the piece of wood you're trying to chisel, sometimes your chisel slips and you punch the piece of wood and you end up with bloody knuckles. So this is why we do it this way.
Wait, how?
So if I'm trying to chisel something right here, I don't want to be back here because if the chisel slips, I'm going to punch it. So if I'm already like this, I have more control and I don't look like I got in a fight. Just something weirdly specific, but like I explain why I do stuff like that. So it's not just them watching me and trying to pick up on every single thing I'm doing. Like I'm doing this because of this, and this. So it's not just them visually learning it, because some people need to hear the why as well.
For me as a student in the full-time program, Alex, Lance, Claire, Steve, they were just so giving, and I felt they just treated everyone the same way and just wanted to share all their knowledge. And I want to do that. That's kind of what I want to be doing as a teacher. That's what I think of, giving, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just giving the information that they gave me. So.
I think for me as a workshop student, it was definitely like, I didn't realize that this all existed. Or I did, but I'd never seen it in a place where you could go learn how to do it.
Or still existed.
Or still
Kind of thing I
existed.
pictured like 100 years ago.
Yeah, and me too. And when I saw some of the work that Dan was doing and like, I could do that. I could install that too. I could have all these things could come together and I could be I never thought about being a furniture maker at the time or even a woodworker. It's just like, how do I just be a better carpenter, a better builder or something? I do remember going back to finishing a house that we were working on in between that workshop time, and like everything did come out a little bit nicer. Things were a little crisper. We were on the line more. It was more thoughtful, a little bit more important, I guess, in that moment. And as a student, I think the one thing I kept and try to share without sharing it, one of my teachers and mentors, it was a Tuesday, so he didn't work on Mondays. And he said, he just came over to my bench really early in the morning. He's like, good. And then he left. Great. And later he's like, I was like, what? He's like, no, I just wanted to just say like, good. I don't have to teach you the hardest thing to learn here. Like to build up how to work. And I didn't know, I thought that he meant like physical work, but I think really what he was trying to say is that you got to show up. And I tell students that a lot. If I see your face, it's on. If I don't see your face, it's not as on as it was before. But I like that involvement part and that the work part, the physical part, that will happen as we kind of go along, but that just willingness to show up and try to do better or to do well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we could probably, if we take one thing, we could carry that into whatever we
Yeah.
want. to
Show
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, show up as
Show
much
up.
as you can.
Yeah.
And
Would you say just show up and at least just sit at your bench and something will happen?
pretty much,
That's all you can muster.
I guarantee, yes, I guarantee it, something.
Or like if you don't have energy to work that day, go look through the binders in the library of all the photos we have of student work. Just, go look at something in there.
Right.
And this is not a critique of absent students. This is just that thought of like, we're there doing it. And
Yeah.
then the next awesome thing happens.
Right, I mean, showing up applies to all of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of this place.
Yes.
You just, you have to get up.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or just like, and like, again, you don't have to do everything while you're here. Like one of my friends in my semester, he wanted to build, a bunch of us were building shield backs. And he didn't have time to do that, but he sat in all of our lectures where we did that just so he could see how it was done, but he didn't have to spend his whole last semester trying to do that as well. Just,
And sometimes that has more value. You already know the language a little bit better than when you
or
start.
you're able to know at least what to ask or where to
Right.
get started.
Right. It's something that I hear Claire say every year about just, and that you're touching on, just absorb the knowledge. And it's coming back full circle with you three because that's kind of also why you're still here. You're still absorbing the knowledge. And just keeping that through line going to the next crew.
And I have definitely taught something on one side of the room that I learned on the other
Yeah.
in the same hour
Mhm.
that I was here. And maybe part of the educator part is that you can take that information and turn it into the needful lesson when you go around the corner, or you engage the next student or whatever that is. And I can have that aha moment with them. Like, I just learned that too.
Mhm.
Such a funny idea of you starting.
Mhm.
It happens every day. Every day. By the time I get to the other side, like, yep, that happened over there, or it's gonna happen over here. And not a preventative thing. It's just that those lessons are waiting for
Right,
us, I
yeah.
think, as we get to those
Yeah.
benches.
Yeah.
To our virtual guests, now's the time to share your questions for our panelists here, and anyone in this room, just shout them out if you have questions. And while we're waiting for one, I'll just ask you, do you all have, this might be a sensitive subject, do you have time for your own practice outside of teaching?
Yeah.
Are you making time for your work?
Yeah, teaching actually helps give me a schedule, which is kind of nice because I'm bad at being my own boss. And so it gives me a little bit more structure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I try to make time. Yeah, for sure.
you made a whole
Thank you.
kitchen while you were working full time and teaching part time. You
I
you
would've
make
did.
you make all the time. I
You
have
make-
no idea how you have energy
Not
Yeah.
good at that. I'm not as good at that. But I have to admit that I only do this part-time, so I can do the other part-time too.
And yeah, same thing.
And I was thinking this morning on the way in, like, how many times have I chatted with a teacher and maybe like regular school, like not trade school? And like, would a math teacher have to go home and do math problems to be a good math teacher? I feel like I need to go and do woodworking so I can come back and be a better woodworker teacher. And as much as, I mean, I have huge, we need the whole team. But I think it's nice to have one person out on the outside and be able to reflect on the outside as well as the inside stuff too.
Oh.
And that's not a reason why. It's more, I like both. I need to do both. I feel like I have to do both until I can't. And then I'd like to be here
Yeah,
until I can't.
I get that. It's a great balance. Are there things that you would like to change in your teaching methodology that you learned as a student?
I was taught how to make chairs here completely different than how I'm building them now and teaching them now. I build them the same as I was taught, and I'm teaching them as I'm just learning how to this last go. So I've been watching we call the chair workshop. I've been participating quietly in the chair workshop behind the scenes for a while since since it's kind of morphed into its new form. And then Lance Patterson and I did it together last round, and this time I'm doing it on my own. And it's the hurdles for me have been that the methods, I should say, that the methods are better. They're stronger, they're more reliable. But I have to do it in a different way and do the order of things hasn't changed that much, but there's definitely things along the way that are completely different that I learned as a student. But the fun part has been that I get to share both. So we're doing it a little bit of both. And one of the moments I had in the office with Lance is we were kind of merging out of the class we just finished and getting ready to start the next one. I won't be able to quote him, but he said something along the lines of like, however you want to do it is okay, or that's okay. And when you have mentorship at that level, sometimes the it's okay part is helpful in that way. But yeah, so I'm learning a new way, making it my new way. But to change it, the change is I'm the change, I think. I'm the part that has to modify into the system that we're working with now. And then it'll become kind of on my own shoes, and then we'll flip back and forth about how we're thinking about it. But part of it is I don't want to become an island to myself with the info. So I want to have it so everyone has access and we can share it all together. But it's definitely different than how I learned how to do it.
And I don't think it starts out as I want to change something. It's more just things are evolving, or you're like, you have new ideas, and it's not like, oh, I just want to change this. It's like we're talking in the office and we're like, hey, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's try that. So it's not necessarily something I learned that I'm like, oh, that wasn't good, I want to change it. It's just evolving, right? Everything's evolving. So it's more of that, and then just talking about things and going, oh yeah, let's try that, or a different approach, because people learn differently. So I think it's more that there's nothing that I learned here that I'm like, I didn't like that. I want to change that. Definitely not, but just, so.
And we have traditions here that sometimes they're different than process, or they become traditional process. And then one day you realize that there's another way, or a different way, or a better way, or faster way. And the folks that showed you those other ways are usually the folks that are first ones to show up and have it be a different way, or have it be a better way or something. That's one thing I really like about this place too. So we have a lot of experience, but more than willing to
Try something
be
different.
flexible.
Yeah.
I liked the way that you just said that, Matt, that you are the change. And because when you think about the history of this place, teaching methods were very different. They're 40 years ago, how even 20 years ago. And so the world keeps changing outside these walls. There has to be adaptation. And it does seem like you all are the change, because you're bringing what you are taking in from the outside world into how to interact with people in this system. I don't like to call it that.
No, but yeah,
Does that sound
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And the info is pretty much the same. There's definitely like technology has changed, and not so much like we draft by hand and now we don't,
We
because we
still
still do. But as simple as like, there are folks on our faculty that remember when there wasn't carbide to be had. And there weren't things that we take for granted now. But the methods are the same. Tools still need to be sharp. You still need to be sharp. The drawings still need to be good.
Yeah.
Patterns still need to be good. And the method, you're still not going to start with the tabletop.
Mhm.
You're still going to start with the legs probably.
Yeah.
But that's how you
Right.
get good and fast at things and efficient at things.
Yeah.
It's not tomorrow we'll do it different.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we'll figure out a way to teach it maybe a little
Yeah,
different. So
teach
the
it different.
next
Yeah.
round can understand, but the information's still the same.
Yeah,
Thank
that's really
goodness.
good. That's really good.
Because if
Yeah.
it wasn't, it would be really hard.
More maybe how we're teaching it than the the
Yeah.
methods or the processes, because again, it's all this experience. We have all this experience and we're just working off of that.
I get a lot of programmers in my intro classes, like people who work with computers, and they just desperately want to do something physical where they can see a tangible result in a day. And they're just so stoked that they like, hey, I made half a box in one day, and the next day they make the other half of it. And they're just like, that's what they want to do with woodworking. They just want to physically do something instead of just sitting here at the computer all day. Yeah, but some of my classes, it'll be like 2/3 programmers or something.
I think I've experienced both, definitely. Where a student did something out in the world that maybe have involved their hands and their brain and their heart, which is kind of what we want here. And then it doesn't cross over at all. And that's okay, I think,
Mhm.
because then it wouldn't be the same. And it would be better and more fun. Or they have an expectation that what they did before will translate really well with hand skills, and then it doesn't. But when it does a little bit, then usually the conversation doesn't even come up. But when it doesn't at all, I feel like that's when we're talking about it. But one of my other favorite things to share, and I think I have a lot more of these adages that I think I do. But I would ask, like, so what did you do before? Is there one thing? I bet there is one thing that you did before that you don't even have to think about. It just happens. Yep, I have that. Good. How long did it take to get to that place? Okay. I understand what you're trying to explain, that maybe there is a little practice to this, but at the same time, your point about having it look like you cheated on it, I would rather it look like that the first time round. Then it's not luck. Then it's not a happy accident. Then we have something to build off of. Or I've seen it come out great and then not come out great and then come out great again. I've seen that too. But I think a lot of they've also come to me disappointed that it wasn't what they thought. Like, oh, I thought I was a hand surgeon when I.
Yeah,
Now I
that
cannot.
Mhm.
Or it doesn't go, but I'm running around crazy like I still am. But if you just settled and took a moment and thought about what you're going to do next, the next thing just happens.
Yeah.
And it flows.
A quote from, someone responded, typed in about, being a programmer coming into learning how to use their hands to build things. The quote is, holy hell, I can hold the results of my effort.
And touch it.
Says doing your first thing with wood.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That tracks.
Yeah.
That's great.
I would say, I think it's one of the things on when we read the rules on different machinery, like, be present, be engaged, take in that knowledge and, learn from everyone around you, instructors, students, just get involved. And we have such a great community. So just,
Show up.
show up.
Yep.
Photograph your processes and write little, like, explain what you were doing, because like when I was a student, I like would post photos on Instagram and then describe what I was doing. And it was mostly for me, just so I'd have like a record of how I did things or why. And it's been very valuable to go back. So just some way of take good notes or good records here, because it's immensely valuable later.
Yep. Have the shop notebook going all the time.
Yeah. Yes. I think take notes. Yeah.
And be open,
Yeah.
be willing.
Mhm.
Show up and absorb.
Show up and absorb. And the folks that are here to help you have a ton of experience, and all they want you to do is be better and be good at it. And that
And
those
give-
suggestions are
Mhm.
intentional, I guess.
Yeah.
And also figure out like if there's something you particularly want to do while you're a student here, like in the full-time program, make sure you make time for that. Like I knew I wanted to do a lot of chairs while I was here. So I did a very simple first chair. So I'd have time to do a second and then eventually a third chair. So like, don't, make the biggest project because it looks cool. Make sure you leave time for the stuff you really want to do as well.
Okay. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you.
For having us.
Yes.
everyone.
Thanks to everybody for joining us virtually, and we'll see you soon. And thank you, Rachel, Ellen, and Matt.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.